And in times of chaos, if you even think back for your own self, you'll find that there are great opportunities that'll become available. But if you're not liquid and you're not in a position to take advantage of them, you're going to miss them.
Good day, my name is David Fusco. And in this show, I'm going to talk about business, finance, and how to survive and thrive in this crazy environment that we're living in today. Welcome to my show.
Good day, everyone. My name is David Fusco. For those who don't know me, I'm a CPA in Staten Island, New York. I have a small accounting practice here, and been in the accounting business world since 1984. And I've got to go through and live through, as a business owner, several significant downturns in the economy, and had plenty of experience with that, helping myself, of course, and helping my clients. Have over 1,200 individual clients and a couple of hundred business clients in different industries. So it's one of the nice things about what I get to do is I get to see the world through the eyes of many different people at many different levels. Being that I kind of started out in 1984, I got the opportunity to live through several economic turmoils in the United States, and for that matter, the world. And we're at that point again, so I've noticed a lot of uncertainty as I'm preparing tax returns of clients these days, this particular tax season. And I find that people don't know what to do. And one of the things that you should try to always keep in mind is that no action is an action, but is it the best action? So you need to put yourself straight as to where you're at. It's now March 22nd, 2023, and we're finding that the banking system right now is a bit shaky. It's been in the news. You could see it coming when interest rates jumped by doubling up over the last year on mortgages, lines of credit, variable credit lines, and makes life a lot more difficult. So cash flow is disappearing for people because they're needing the funds to pay for necessities like food, energy, and such. Doesn't leave a lot of money left over for personal spending of any sort. So the first thing you got to remember is don't panic. When you're in fear, when you're in panic mode, you cannot make decisions. And the decisions, if you do make, while in that negative energy mode of fear and panic, never seem to work out, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So what you need to do is first get yourself centered and figure out where you are at. So sit down, take out a pad and pencil, get to gather your family and friends together, your community of people that you know. Obviously, first do it on your own to analyze your own personal situation, to find out what your resources are, what your assets are, what your debts are, how liquid your assets are, where they're located, and get an understanding of that. I mean, you should have that done at all times, so that you're not running around last moment trying to figure out things. So first, get a good accounting of where you're at. And I would say right behind that, or kind of simultaneous with that, is community. Having connections. That we're human beings, we're like pack animals, like dogs, and we need to bond together. As a unit, we are much stronger. We need to try not to allow the negativity of the division that's being caused, dividing people up into smaller and smaller categories and groups, creating hatred and whatnot. That doesn't help. And again, that keeps you focused on things that are not going to be productive for you. So after you've got a good accounting of where you're at, and communicate with your friends and family and see about those people who are in alignment with you, you need to start taking different actions. But before I get into that, let me just give you an idea of like some of the things I've seen during my lifetime with respect to the financial world. In the 1970s, in 1973, the United States came off the gold standard. At that time, the U.S. dollar was backed by gold and convertible into gold for foreign nations. We came off of that, and the dollar then was free floating. Back in the 70s, for those who are older like myself, you'll remember the gas lines, the odd and even license plates to get gasoline at the gas station. There's a lot of turmoil and a lot of stress. Interest rates at one point, I believe, hit over 20% on a home mortgage. One of my clients reminded me of that. He had applied for a mortgage in, I think it was 1979, the end of 79, and 6 months later, his 8.5% mortgage rate, the rates had jumped up to 20.75%, which is insane. So things can happen, and they happen fast on the downside. So what did people, do back in the 1970s was they had to come up with a plan to protect themselves from an heavy inflationary environment that we were in. And the United States government at that time, what they did was they raised interest rates up dramatically. And by raising up the rates, they were able to get the inflation under control. Whether they're trying to attempt to do that today or not, I don't know. That's what some of the talking points are. But right now we're in another pickle. When I actually opened my own business on my own was late 89 or through 1990. And at that time, when I was creating my office, the economy was in very poor condition. I remember in the 80s, they created an entity called the Resolution Trust Corp. And what this entity did was it took in all of the assets of the defunct banks and it auctioned them off. So my initial office that I set up in 1990s was almost exclusively purchased from failed banks through the Resolution Trust Corp. Desks, chairs, computers, everything. The assets were going at 10 cents on the dollar. So will we head down that same path again? Could it be worse? We don't know. We know where we are right now. So right now you have time to prepare. If you want to go forward again in my memory of the downturns in the economy, the next one that I remember that was pretty strong was the one that started in late 87 and that really kicked in 1988. The stock market had a major crash in 87, and then in 88, because of tax law changes, especially the real estate market took a significant drop. Construction shut down for years. There were construction projects of homes sitting around for 3, 4, 5, 6 years with nothing happening. You had foundations in the ground. You had totally built out houses and everything in between. Total shutdown of these construction sites. Nothing moving. Nobody functioning. People would call these buildings white elephants at the time. It wasn't probably until 94 that it started feeling better, and probably 1996 that things started balancing out to the pre-1988 levels. We go forward again, then there was the dot-com crash, which really I didn't see it affecting the economy overall. And obviously it affected the economy, but it didn't have the impact as much into the street because it was really focused in that one industry group, which was kind of just starting out. So that really didn't have a big hit. Of course, many more people are going to remember the 2008 crash, where again we had a financial crisis. Bear Stearns went under, major company, and their assets were sold off at pennies on the dollar. The shareholders were wiped out, and things were bad for a while. And then the United States and other countries around the world started pouring liquidity into the system by just creating more funds available to individuals and to financial institutions. And again, here we are at the footsteps in 2023, looking at the beginnings of a financial crisis again in the banking system. We've all been told about FDIC insurance and so forth. which we feel like is a way of protecting assets. And that really, so to protect your assets, obviously you need to, as we spoke about earlier, get a full accounting of what you have, the resources you have, the liabilities that you have, and your cash flow that you're going to need to handle these things. Sit down with your friends and family, go over what you have, and maybe there's some things that as a unit you can share together and that help you out in the long term, especially if this turns into something maybe even more significant than the 1988 to 1996 downturn, which it could very well be. We've seen already a few banks fail, and they've been getting full bailouts. But if the system, some of them, and if the system gets even worse, we're going to get more of that. So what do? You have money in the bank. You say, okay, I'm okay. I have under the FDIC limits that are set currently at 250. That's 250,000. So I'm not going to worry. My money's safe. Well, the FDIC, from my understanding, has 5 years to get you that money. There's no payment schedule. So what do you do during that 5-year period if your monies are locked up? Banks can fail. You, as a depositor in a bank, are an unsecured creditor, which means you line up at the bottom of the list on a payout, on a liquidation of a bank, like as I bought assets back in the early 1990s from the Resolution Trust Corp of the failed banks, 10 cents on the dollar. What are those assets going to be worth? And will the creditors from top to bottom be able to get fully made whole? You don't want to find yourself in that position. You don't want to find yourself fighting. Obviously, you have to have money in the banks. You need to pay your bills. You need to deposit money and clear it through the banking system. That's what we use right now. So obviously, one of the things you can do is you can spread the assets among different banks. That's going to help. Some of the more less obvious things is the investments that you have in brokerage firms. Keep in mind, a brokerage firm is not covered with FDIC insurance, which, as we just mentioned, they have plenty of time to give you the money back with no schedule. Brokerage firms can fail, i.e. Bear Stearns in 2008 timeframe. Banks can fail. As you noticed, actually, a few banks are getting scoffed up by the larger banks now. Does that mean you're going to be made whole? We hope so. But if this continues and goes on, there's no guarantees at what point the government, even if they have all the intentions of taking care of everybody and bailing them out, it may not happen the way you would hope. So one of the things that I personally have done is I've removed the unnecessary money in the bank and put it direct with the United States Treasury. It's easy as pie to do. You can go online, treasurydirect.gov. Took me less than 10 minutes to set up. You can set them up as an individual. You can set them up as a business entity. You can set them up as a trust. Easy to do. The money is linked to your bank account. The resources get brought over to the Department of the Treasury and invested. Right now, predominantly, I'm feeling that the best bet is to stay as short term as possible. So I put my assets into 4-week, 8-week, and 13-week T-bills. You can buy others. You can buy longer period. You can buy up to 30-year if you want. You could buy some I-bonds if you want. Me personally, I want the liquidity so that I know when I want to utilize that money for the opportunities that will be coming up, it's ready to use and it's going to be available. At this point, even the 4-week T-bills are paying over 4.5% interest when it's annualized. And another nice benefit is there's no state and city tax. Another thing is you could set these T-bills up under Treasury Direct to just automatically reinvest. So you could go in there, say, I want to buy a 4-week T-bill, reinvest 10 times. Then suddenly you realize after, let's say, the second reinvestment, no, I need the money. You log back in, change it to 0. Next time the money comes out. If you chose to go into something of a longer term duration and you need the money, you can still get that money liquidated. Treasury bills are one of the most liquid assets in the world. You would then just have to, there's a procedure to transfer the T-bill to a brokerage account or a bank, and you could liquidate it that way. Obviously, the market conditions are going to prevail on what you're going to actually get for that T-bill. When you hold treasuries to the end of the maturity, whether it's 4 weeks or 30 years, you get the full principal amount. The thing is if you need the money now and you have a long-term treasury bill, you may lose a significant amount of principal depending on the interest rate you're getting on your T-bill. Other things that you should have, obviously, for those who live in the areas that were affected by the Storm Sandy several years ago, power was down. You couldn't really get access to your banks because everything's in the, much of the universe is now in the electronic world, and people were stuck. I remember going to a gas station where they had some power and they were pumping gas, and I watched the man in front of me have a $100 bill, and his gas bill came out to whatever it was, $40 or $50 range, and the gas attendant said, "Hey man, I have no change. We don't have," so he took the $100 bill, and the guy paid for maybe $50 of gas for $100. Whether the guy was lying at the gas station or not, it doesn't matter. The man purchasing it was under desperate feelings, and he needed the gas more than he needed that $100, even though he was being overcharged. So it's a very good idea, if you haven't done so already, to have some cash at home and in your hand, and not in $100 bill form. I mean, if you want some, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Personally, I think you're better off with having 5s, 10s, 20s, and that would be the bulk of whatever amount of cash you feel is necessary in your circumstances. We obviously still leave money in the bank. Nothing you can do about that. If that's the money that's at risk of a bank failure, well, then that's what it is. But if you've set aside other resources, like in the treasury bills, you're going to be in much better position and you'll feel more comfortable. You can always relink up that treasury direct account with other bank accounts that you might have, so you'll always be able to get access to your money. Other things that you might want to buy are some physical things that kind of have no connection to the monetary system today. Physical gold, physical silver. You don't have to go crazy or insane, but to have some is a really good thing. So do your own research into it. There's tons of information out there on the internet to look up. And if you want, you could even talk to me if you're a client already, of course, or if you want to be, you're more than welcome to do that. And I can help you and talk about these things. Now, a lot of times people have, if they're lucky, a significant amount of the resources invested already in the stock market. Whatever, I think today, who knows, the market's going up, the market's going down, but it seems like it's in a good condition. But is it? From what I've been reading over the last several months at least, insiders, that means people who are inside the companies at the higher levels, they've been selling off a lot of their positions. These people are in a position to better know what's going to happen than you or I on the outside. So what do? You sell the assets, or you keep the assets? Do you buy more? But let's say you're saying, you know what, I need to start cleaning up some of my assets. So you have a choice. You can run and you can panic and just sell across the board. Or you could sit and do an analysis of what you have and say, you know what, let's get rid of these weak hands, because in bad economies, these seem to do worse. And you might even say, hey, in a bad economy, these types of investments do better. Let's say that's not your situation. You're just not sure what to do. You have your basket of stuff, stocks and bonds. Well, what do? You want to sell it all, but you're not sure. Maybe you don't. So one of the things you can do is just, do a portion. So at least you've taken an action. So is that portion half, 25%, whatever? That's all your call. Take a look at what you have, make a decision. Obviously, the older you are, the more at risk you are on a significant downturn if you're holding assets that drop in value significantly. You have less recovery time. If you're in your 20s, you've got a whole lifetime ahead of you. If you're in your 60s or 70s, you've got a heck of a lot less time ahead of you. If you're not sure what to do, get advice. You go on the internet, there's probably millions, who knows, I don't know, thousands at least of different professionals and semi-professionals, people that are giving advice as to what to do. Listen to them, but make your own decision no matter what. Or talk to your financial advisor. The best financial advisor is one that has no conflict of interest. If you go to your stockbroker, he knows stocks. His advice will probably lean towards that. If you go to an insurance agent, he knows insurance. His advice is going to lean towards that. That's where their bread is buttered. That's where they're going to go, and that's what they're going to think about. Very few have the strength to actually recommend things that are outside their system. Just as a note on brokerage firms, if you mention to your broker, hey, I want to sell off half my stuff and I'm going to transfer it and buy treasury bills, they're going to recommend, hey, we can buy those treasury bills for you. When you own an asset inside of a brokerage firm, the brokerage firm is your custodian, which means you don't have the actual title to it. And in many instances, if I'm not wrong, the brokerage firm doesn't. The clearinghouse has the title to these assets. So in a systemic failure, who actually owns it? Another interesting thing is I can see this with my old time clients. There's less and less now, but the guys that were around during the Depression time or maybe shortly thereafter, the majority of their stock holdings, they actually still have the paper certificates, or they have dividend reinvestment programs with the stock registrar of the company listing their name. So they're listed directly on the company's register. They truly own the stock. Their name is on that stock. Whether it's up or down in value, that's another story, but they actually own it, versus inside of a brokerage firm where you're just a claimant on that security that's held in your name, so to speak, by the brokerage firm. So get advice, talk to people, learn, make a decision. And actually, when going back in my own mind, and I haven't always taken advantage of it, whatever those downturn time frames were, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 00s, the 8s, 2008, and all those time frames, significant opportunities came forward. Significant, where you could have done massive. Playing the short side, I mean, I don't have the skill or knowledge or maybe even the guts to do that. Whenever I have tried, I've gotten my punched in the face, so to speak. But if you're liquid and your monies and your resources are in liquid assets that you still have access to, such as at Treasury Direct, or in cash or gold or silver or something that you can convert back into currency at the right time, amazing opportunities are going to come up where you're going to be able to scoop up assets on pennies on the dollar. I mean, just as a quick thought that's popping in my head, was a buddy of mine back in, I think it was the 2008 crash. He wanted to get a new Dodge Ram truck, the bigger one, with the diesel engines and all that. When he was first looking, the price was probably around 30% greater than what he actually got it for. Because he waited, and because these car dealerships became desperate, he was able to really scoop up and make really great purchases. That in mind, right now, if there are things that you're thinking about buying, if it's not really truly necessary, wait. Nothing's going to change if you wait. If it's an amazing opportunity, and it really is, and you're not just kidding yourself with the opportunity, then take a step. You know, we have to keep living and moving forward. But if I'm not wrong, the Chinese word for chaos and opportunity are the same. And in times of chaos, if you even think back for your own self, you'll find that there are great opportunities that'll become available. But if you're not liquid and you're not in a position to take advantage of them, you're going to miss them. So to recap, in my opinion, the most important thing is to get an accounting of where you're at, figure it out, talk to friends and family that you really trust, and come up with plans how you can work together in case things get really awry. Just one last thing to add in there. As you can see, food prices are not going down, and I don't think they will be anytime soon. So it wouldn't be a terrible thing to buy more food and resources such as water, things that we need to consume that keep life going. I remember growing up and in my parents' basement, and as well as a lot of my friends' parents' basements, they would have these storage rooms with shelving stocked with food, tons of food. My grandparents in their backyard grew their own garden of vegetables. My grandfather, who was off the boat from Italy, he would create the little seedlings during the early springtime, so that when it came time to plant them in the ground, they were ready to go. Learn skills like that. It doesn't hurt. Also, now you know how the food is actually being prepared and what chemicals, if any, are being put on it. So my advice to you is don't panic. Gather your information. Be prepared. Talk to friends and family. Get them involved. Come up with plans of different sorts. And get ready for the amazing opportunities that are ahead. Good luck, and I'm sure you all will do great. Thank you.